and I'm taking the straight edge, and I'm going to do a right angle. And it will come over and come through here. I may be clumsy here, I'm sorry, I don't mean to be. But it'll be a right angle. Meaning right angle to our original line. So now all of these are equal angles, and this one is a right angle. Now what's happening, how did they subdivide the rest? It's obvious. They didn't use this pi system. They backed everything up against the original line and struck the lines out like this. I happen to know this, so I know where they were at Nantucket and at Billingsgate. So that demarked what the first splinter group from Plymouth was the group that went to East End, and sure enough, this is the bounds exactly for the Plymouth group, 7 families. And they spliced up the land and divided it into 7 sections exactly based on that principle. So the next group comes up and the next divide on that side of the line. Well, with that kind of insight, I then felt that somehow I needed to have some exposure to this. And I went into Hyannis, and I walked right in off the street to the Cape Cod Times. This is a Sunday, May 2nd, in 1982. 11 years ago now, but I walked in, it was just when we were going into Falkland Islands. And I met the receptionist at the desk, and I said, I think I have a story that could be of interest. And she called up, and a fellow reporter came out, and he took the story, and he did a terrific job with it. And it was published in the Sunday supplement section of this paper. It had drawings, it had the whole part of the story and everything. And this went out through all the Cape Cod families on the Cape. And I thought, oh boy, now I'm going to get it. One fellow wrote and came back, he was at MIT, and he said, you know, you made me get out all my charts and everything, because it's a workout to do this. You really got to work. He said, you made me get out all my charts and go through this. He said, and I went through it. He said, you're right. And to this day, no one has ever rebutted this thesis. I was asked to lecture on it, and it has been written up now in Cape Cod for their anniversary years. But I was asked to speak at Plymouth at the Pilgrim Hall, and like an evening like this with historian people that really are interested in history, and I helped to give them an insight about what it was I was up to. And this, believe it or not, was on a Monday morning at 10 o'clock, and I was sure no one would show up. The place was filled. And everybody was interested in following exactly what I was up to. And then when they had this question and answer period, one fellow put up his hand and asked me, is there more to the story? Is there more north of here? Is there more going on? I'm like, more. Well, as if I didn't have enough. Now somebody's asking for more. But I like the challenge. But in summary, to the Plymouth end, I did carry this northward. Now you'll see, this is the point that we've been watching right here that subdivided these Cape towns. Now if you move off from here, though, one of the most remarkable moments in the history of this state was when Plymouth Colony and Massachusetts Bay Colony had to determine their bounds. And it's fun when you go back and you read William Bradford's history of Plymouth, which I'm sure many of you know, but it's really a somewhat amusing story to hear him in chapter 30, and he talks about what they call the border dispute with the Bay Colony. And he talks about amongst, now this is his language, amongst the rest, in other words, they have their plantation and sundry times granted lands to several townships, and amongst the rest to the inhabitants of Scituate, over there, Scituate. That's their last route going up the line from Plymouth. bordered on their neighbors of the Massachusetts, who had some years after seated a town called Hingham, and on their lands next to these parts. So there grew great difference between these two townships about their bounds, and some meadow grounds that lay between them, and they of the opposite town, turn the page here, of Hingham, presumed to allot part of them to their people and measure and stake them out, and the other side went out and pulled up the stakes and threw them away. Well, this was really a very difficult period. Those two towns couldn't even talk to each other, and they finally had to put a commission together from both sides, and out of that grew what we know as the Old Colony line. It's not a railroad, it's a creek. It's a line that was set out here, at this point here, which goes down to Attleboro and Plainville, Rentham, and so forth. It starts up in Cohasset and goes down to Hingham Road. Now that helps to finish out the work. I did a lot more work inside of Plymouth Colony's grounds to determine other lines out of that. But this was basically the story for Plymouth. So let me move on. The fellow that asked the question, is there more? Well, let me show you what more looks like, and it will give you a heart attack. If you look at the map, it's just scrambled eggs. As a matter of fact, now that you see Plymouth can have some kind of order to it, but look what's ahead for me. This truly is like scrambled eggs as you look through here. Yeah, there's a little bit more coherence, and the more you know about this is very late, a lot of these divisions. But what's going to happen here? Well, but this is the wrong map. The map you have to really look at is this map. There's a map I put together. This breaks down all the existing towns in the colony of the colonial times that I'm interested in. So you'll see our friendly Cape Cod towns and so forth, and this will go all the way up to Portland, Maine. So I have all the coastal towns and all the towns in New Hampshire, and then of course all of our towns. And you'll recognize your cousin here, Concord. And if you look close enough, you'll probably see Stowe in here. But this is about the general areas that consume. Yes, you could probably prove to me that maybe Lancaster or some other towns are in here, but in general, this is the bulk of the build-up for this early colonial period. Now, up to this time, what we see historically is a case of Europe coming to the North American shores. And of course, this simplistic chart will show you what's happening. These with lines shown like this, dark, running all the way down through here, you know very well that this is Spain. Taking all of the Caribbean, all the islands, Cuba, Florida, coming on up through Mexico, way up into California, and going all the way, of course, to Peru and all the way down to Chile. Now the next one, in terms of land area, is France. It's enormous, relatively to all the lands that they had assumed they had command of. Now it's not cultivated with real colonization like we expect, but these are outposts all over the place, all down through the St. Lawrence River, all through the Great Lakes, all down through the Mississippi River, all the way to the Gulf, and outposts all throughout the whole of this area, all France. And what's left is this black area is England. Yes, and the Dutch are just a little bit in here, up at Albany and maybe down to Manhattan. But that's the general makeup of what's happening on the coast. And they're beginning now, all of a sudden, you can see that the weak one on this chart is England. They're running far behind them, and all of a sudden they're beginning to wake up. And what they're going to do is put together a concentrated drive to take in their fair share of this great continent. And now, down here, going south, we needn't be involved. This is Spain and Spanish work here, and maybe even, as we know, they even did a road even to some degree north here. But in general, all of this work that we're seeing here is English. And the English are continuously, at first, taking a section this big, from 34 degrees to 45 degrees of latitude lines, this piece here, this band. But then when they got in there, they realized that somehow they didn't have command of the whole of this with enough intimacy. They broke it into two parts. Broke it into what we would call Virginia or South Virginia. And this went to the Company of London, which handled this part. The other split went to another company, which was the Company of Plymouth, which was this subdivision here. Now we're getting more closely aligned to what we really want to find. This is really the ownership of New England. And in their impatience, but this is about 1606, they're controlling this much. And still they're not satisfied. And by 1620, of course, they've upped it, and now they're up to 48. So they're doing really what they're doing, but they're going to just do it by latitude lines. That's the key point I'm trying to make. You notice all these are divisions through latitude, one horizontal. And the one that, and then who comes in the act and then also is fighting it? Now the French are quite, they're up here. But no, the French are down here too. So now you're going to see exactly why the terrific confrontation between the English and the French over this land. Now the last one, way over to the end, is going to be one of the most interesting parts that we're going to be interested in. This is a group that break out of the Company of Plymouth Company, and they create what is known as the New England Council. And that's really the part that I'm trying to get to. This is the time that this is what they were like. This is what they're like in England. The group that handled the southern section were from the London Company in London. The Plymouth Company is out here in Plymouth. Yes, back here is the royal family and the Greenwich, the royal residence. But this is generally how they're set up physically in England. They're not all in London, at least not at this time. And, well, let me go on. And the time we're talking about is the period of James I. And I want to now, from time to time, I'm going to try not to use my words, but let you see the words of others that come into the picture. We're now looking at a piece that deals with England and its undertaking to gain these lands. The English were now thoroughly alarmed lest the French seize all of New England. So King James I recognized the danger, acted by dividing the whole coast of North America into two parts. Now that's the one I just went over with you, the North and South Virginia. Where we are was known as North Virginia. It's not a term we can hear today, but that's, as you can see here, that was the reference. In 1606, the Virginia Company, headed by Sir Fernando Gorges, with an O, Gorges, maybe pronounced Gorges, Georges I'll pronounce it, formed with the purpose of making settlements and included all of New England or North Virginia. included everything between the Hudson River and Newfoundland. And Georges was appointed the governor. And immediately, all sorts of interesting documents appear to encourage people to colonize. This becomes the rage in England. This document is dated 1624, obviously decided earlier, by Sir William Alexander. Now, you're going to see the name of Georges come up again. His name is Sir Fernando Georges. And Alexander and he are at Plymouth, and they're helping to organize and to implement this whole idea of colonization. You'll see for the first time that here's a document that Sir Fernando Georges, Knight, wrote this piece on America. Now, all of these are sort of propaganda or inducements for colonization. I have another one here, but I needn't be doing this. But just to show you the rhythm, these documents just keep coming out over a period of time, even beyond the period that we're talking about. But you'll see his work, his name again, written by the Right Worshipful Sir Fernando Georges, Knight and Governor of the Fort and Island of Plymouth. He was the governor at Plymouth in England and watched over the fort at Plymouth. He is, to give you an idea of his residence, now we'll come to this is a grand 4-volume set. My family had always been interested in history, so I own this marvelous work. And from this volume, which is the key to unlocking most of what I'm trying to do, I'd like to refer to that. I'll refer to some other documents too, but the Memorial History of Boston. A meeting of the council was held at Greenwich on Sunday, June 29, 1623, and in the presence of King James himself, the whole coast of New England, from the Bay of Fundy to Narragansett, was apportioned among 20 patentees. This is another work on colonial documents. Now this will help to just reinforce that idea. I'll read it because I don't think you can see this, but at Greenwich, Sunday the 29th, June 23, a plot, it's a plan or a map, of all the coasts and lands of New England, divided into 20 parts. The names of the 20 patentees by whom these lots were to be drawn are below. These rambled numbers are they've cast the dice, and this is how the lots were drawn. But here are the names of the 20 assignees. You'll notice that Sir Fernando Georges is one of those who's cast, and he has lot 19. Now this is his son, who's called Lord Georges here. Now he wasn't at this meeting, but who drew the lots for him was the king. The King's Majesty drew the lots. In fact, he was not present. So all of these men. Now I'm going to try to help show you that the next charter, because this is all colonial charters in this work. I'm only pointing to this. The next charters, you can see they're coming, are the Massachusetts Bay. But that's going to be still some 7 years later before the presence of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Now the map that that we have reference to is this map here. It's a map that's not familiar to most of us. It took me a long time to even find this map. I knew there must be something out there, but I couldn't find it. It's a map that goes all the way out, all the way to Cape Breton and out Newfoundland, Cape Breton, all through Nova Scotia, all the way down through New England. And now all of a sudden, something's funny happening here. There are some names scattered here, but there's a whole bunch of these names over here. Those are the names of the 20. Now this is another map that someone else had put together, purchase work. And he moved in on this. He didn't take in now all of the rest of Nova Scotia. He went in and looked at this. And so I don't have him right behind him and see this. And just when you look at it, you can't figure it out. But you did hear that it did run from it ran from Narragansett, which is in this portion right here, up to the Bay of Fundy. Well, this is called Argall's Bay. This is the Bay of Fundy right in here. So whatever it is, they're right between these two points. And it didn't come easy to try to figure out what this was, but the map prepared by Sir William Alexander. Now you saw his name earlier. It was first published in the following year of 1624, and upon this map or plot were now written down just within the coastline from the St. Croix. Now we're getting a much more precise point. That's the St. Croix, that's the river. That's the division between the United States and Canada, St. Croix. Passamaquoddy Bay is the outcharge of the St. Croix River in that basin. Down to, I'd like you to notice this, to Buzzard Bay. So now we have a closer definition of where, now if we look back and see that original map, a closer in look, we'll see that's these names. Now I notice though that these names look relatively regular. I don't mean they are absolutely regular, but they have more of a constant rhythm about their placement. More, if you notice, that they're rather equal in terms of the rhythm of placement. Up, and so forth. Well, I still couldn't make sense out of that, but at least I had the two defined zones. And out of that came a new look at this. I took those names, exactly the same type and everything. I just straightened them out. And I drew them out correctly in terms of the way they said the numbers were drawn. So that each name, and you'll see, here's Lord George is here. You'll see Sir Fernando George is at 19. Now you'll see all these names are names that those of you who know the New England area very well will recognize names here, just tumbling out. Argall and George's Court, Carlisle, Holderness, names of towns, I'm saying, that we all would recognize. Here's Pembroke, Sheffield. Sometimes I can't quickly read all the names here. But Buckingham, Warwick, Richmond, obviously these are the names of the people of Grant. But their names now are coming and they're going to be planted on our shore. Exactly these names. We'll go back to my favorite volume, Memorial History of Boston, in which they're making the point here. The design now was to establish a principality rather than a trading post on the New England shore. The new enterprise was organized by no less a person than Sir Fernando Georges and his younger son, Robert. was in the immediate charge of it. So it's actually, we will see the presence of his son, Robert, in this study. This covered a tract on the northeast side of what was then known as Massachusetts Bay, included waters inside of Nahant Headland and Point Allerton. Point Allerton is where Nantasket and Hull is. The territory had a seafront of 10 miles and stretched 30 miles into the interior. It was a part of a great scheme, and it looked to nothing less than the organized colonization of New England. Another piece of work. This is not Walter Muir Whitehead's work. This is Shirtler, who was the one that organized all of the basic records, you know, for Plymouth Colony and for Massachusetts Bay Colony. There's a patent for land was issued to Robert Georges. The territory covered by it lay on the northeast side of Blossom Bay, having a seafront of 10 straight miles and included all the islands within a league of the shore, and it extended 30 miles into the interior. This grant subsequently was pronounced void. I'm going to come back to this part. Void. Pronounced void by lawyers, and covered apparently the whole territory between Nahant and the mouth of the Charles, and included Lynn and the most populous portions of what is now Middlesex. This is the map that we've just explored. It's a very basic, honest map laid over exactly our towns today. Now what I'd like to do is, now that we've seen pretty much this, I'd like to now explore two dimensions of this. I'd like to move on magnetic north, which is this line,